have any problem with that. But
hey, the Lord let me live this long.
That's right. It's perfectly fine.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So, what is your official name? Susan?
Susan Lynn Pyles.
Okay. And what year were you born, Susan?
I was born in 1951.
Such a child. No, that's great. The 50s were a good year.
That was fun.
We started messing up when we got to the 60s. Oh boy, those 60s. So, where were you born?
I was born in Peoria, Illinois,
Okay.
and I am the oldest of 6 children.
Okay.
And my father was a lithographer. That was his trade, but he built homes. At that time, you could build a home and you could live in it, and then my father would have another child, and then they would build another home and sell the home that they had. And he did that until the 60s, when my little brother was born, and the unions were being really fussy and trying to get themselves established, and they would sabotage the homes that were being built. And he was in a subdivision in Sunnyland, and the home next door to him, where he was building, was creosote, and they ripped out all of the plumbing that was in there. And then they came to my father and they said, if you don't want this to happen to you, then you need to have some union workers, or you need to sell it to someone who can have union people finish this. And my father had 6 children, and all his money was tied up in that. And so he sold that home, and then we bought a house in Peoria Heights, and that's where we all grew up.
Oh, that's neat.
So he was a neat guy.
That's really neat. Were you born in a hospital or at home?
I was born at St. Francis Hospital.
Okay, you have not come very far from your very beginning. That's great. That's really great. So, you went to Peoria Heights High School? Did you
No, Peoria Heights was its own village, but so was Richwoods Township. And so we had our own grade schools. We had a grade school, Monroe Avenue, that was built, that went to 6th grade.
Okay.
And then we had Kelly Avenue School, which was up in the Heights across from where Pabst Brewing Company was.
I know where that
and
is.
that went to 8th grade. And so when you got to 7th and 8th grade, you had to go up there. And together, Richwoods Township and the village of Peoria Heights built Richwoods High School.
Okay.
And then shortly after I think it was probably 4 years, maybe 3 years, the township annexed into Peoria.
Okay.
So I went to Richwoods High School for 2 years. And then my brother was graduated. Well, he couldn't go there anymore. They made the Peoria Heights kids go to Woodruff. And so I just thought it'd be easier if we were both in the same school for my family. And so I transferred to Woodruff as well, which was really interesting in the 60s.
I bet.
It was very interesting. And I went to school with Dan Fogelberg.
You did?
Yes, he was in my graduating class. And my brother was
he musical then?
Yes, he would play his guitar during art. They'd go outside to draw, and he'd take his guitar with him. And he was a really nice guy. Really, really nice guy. He never could come back for any of the class reunions. It just didn't fit within his schedule. He traveled so much there. So, so that was very fun.
You started to say my brother.
Yeah. My brother was in the art class with Dan.
Him.
Yes.
With him.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun. So then, what did you do after high school?
So after high school, I went to work. I worked at Sandy's while I was going to high school.
Okay. And tell what Sandy's is.
And Sandy's was a fast food restaurant, kind of like McDonald's.
Yes.
And there was one on McClure Street, not too far from Peoria Heights, and I worked there, where I met my first husband. Okay. And then I got married, and then I went to work for the Kroger Company.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Yes. And I worked for Kroger's for 18 years.
And were they in Peoria?
Yes.
And what was your job?
When I started, I was a checker.
Okay.
But I have a lot of energy.
Yes, you
And so,
do.
and so I was just bored to tears because in
yeah.
between customers, and so
Yeah.
I really did everything in Kroger's except cut meat.
Oh my goodness.
I worked in the deli, I worked in the bakery. When I left there, I was actually in the produce department.
Is that something?
And so I was there for
18
years. And when I got married to Don Pyles, which
Yes.
we moved to Morton. That was in 1983.
Okay.
We moved to Morton because his family was from Deer Creek.
Okay.
And my family was from Peoria Heights.
Okay.
And so we
Kind of
went in the
between.
middle. Yeah. And the Lord just led us here to this perfect little home. And
it is,
and
Yeah.
and so I've lived here 35 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice. And when you moved to Morton, were you still working for Kroger?
Yes, I worked for Kroger's, and I still worked on Wisconsin Avenue. That was the store I
Okay.
started at.
Okay.
And I tried to transfer to the Kroger's here in town.
Sure.
But at that time, Kroger, this was in the 80s, Kroger's was, they were only hiring permanent part-time help.
Oh.
And I would have lost my seniority
Sure.
and
Don't wanna do that.
a lot of stuff. And so my manager would not let me transfer because he wasn't allowed to tell me that. And then when I quit, he explained that.
That's why.
That's why. Because he knew that they would do that to me, and he didn't want that to happen.
Oh.
So I quit working at Kroger's.
Yeah.
And I started a photography business in Morton, Illinois. Which was my husband's dream, to have his own photography business.
And what did you call it?
It was Masterpiece Photography and Video.
Nice.
And the Lord gave us that name, and the piece was spelled Peace.
Yes.
The Lord's Peace. And we transferred old home movies onto videotape.
Oh,
And not digital yet, but we weren't in that yet. And miles and miles and miles of tape. It was very
what
interesting.
What a service, though, Susie.
It was wonderful.
All the
I
kids,
enjoyed
all
doing
the
that.
little babies that they would have lost.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was great. So we did that, and my husband was a photographer, and then I learned photography as well, because then when I worked, and at one time I employed 5 young ladies. And so we had a great time taking pictures. And,
yes, you did.
And my girls, when they came to work for me, they were mostly high school girls. And I would make them do the books because most of them didn't know how to do books. And it would be on a spreadsheet.
Sure.
And they would have to figure out what we spent on things and how much money we took in and where that came
You
from.
were training.
And do that. And so... and there were times when you're doing books like that, it doesn't balance.
Right.
And they would be like, I'll just give you this nickel. Can't I just give you this? And then I was like, no, just put it aside and we'll look at it tomorrow. Well, then the next day it's a little more clear.
Up.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I have a young lady, Emily Bellato, who worked for me. And Emily has her own business now. She's a personal trainer. And she said, Susan, I do my books exactly like we did in the photography. And so that was great training for them.
Oh,
but that was
so
fun.
good.
I got to really spend a lot of time with a lot of wonderful young women.
Sure.
And we were the family photographer. We took your picture when you were 6 weeks old and all the way up to graduation.
Sure.
It was fun. And weddings.
And you got to know the people in the community.
Yes.
A lot.
It was fun.
How, sort of like Tremont's sort of in the middle, how did you pick Morton?
This is just where the Lord led us. So
Yeah.
we prayed about that a lot, where we should
That
live.
was
And,
good.
so we bought a home on East Avenue, and we bought it contract for deed for the first 5 years, and then we got a loan. So that was the Lord just opened that door. The man and his wife were going to, they retired and they were traveling the United States in a camper.
Isn't that
Yeah,
something?
so it was great.
So you were a monthly check coming
Yeah.
into them
It was
and finance
great.
their travels. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
it was
great.
fun.
So did you have children?
I have no children.
Okay.
Yeah, I never had children.
But you know how many young people you have
Well, I have
worked with. Oh, Susie,
it's
you
fun.
have it.
So, but my nieces and nephews were always a big part of my life.
Sure.
So they spent a lot of time at my house, and we did lots of fun stuff.
I bet you were one of the favorite. Now, where were you in the 6? You said the oldest.
I'm the oldest. Yes.
Okay, so they really would have sent their children to you, and you would have had such a good time. Plus, Morton's a great town to, that's really good. What impressed you about Morton when you guys moved here? Were the things that you sort of noticed?
Well, when we came here, my brother-in-law, and my father-in-law had a trucking business.
Okay.
And it was Pyles Trucking, and they operated out of Deer Creek, Illinois. And they hauled a lot of things from manufacturers, Morton Buildings,
sure,
and Core Construction, those different companies.
Sure.
And one of the things that he always said was that people in Morton honored hard work and commitment. Mm-hmm. And so even though you kind of got the impression, I think sometimes that if you weren't apostolic or you didn't fit into there or that, but my brother-in-law was saying, you know what, you come in, do a good job, and the people in Morton respect that, and the business people, and then they'll recommend you to someone else. Mathis Kelly, or Mathis Lumber, he hauled a lot of things into that.
For them.
Yeah. For them, so.
Yeah. Oh, I have such a story about them, but I can't tell that right now. Anyway.
Can I have you scoot your chair just slightly? There, now you're more centered.
Okay. Now you're more centered.
Okay.
Great.
I want to be centered.
Yeah, there you go. What do you like? What were some of the fun things that you liked about Morton? What did you and Don do when you moved to Morton? Like
in 1983.
Like on a Friday night, would you? Well, he'd probably be at the football games photographing things.
You know what? He really didn't start that until he retired from Caterpillar because he worked at Caterpillar.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he worked at Caterpillar 35 years.
Oh, wow.
And so we did weddings on the weekends, a lot of weddings that we did. Sure. And he did not have time really to start doing that, the sports stuff until he retired from Caterpillar. Yeah. Okay. So during the time that we had our photography, we did shoot pictures for Morton Youth Baseball Association and the Soccer Association and all of those. And so you got to meet all these wonderful families and their children. And that was fun. We really enjoyed it.
And made some really good friends.
We
there.
did.
I'm sure you made some really good friends.
So I do know that there were a lot of gospel groups that came through Morton. And so a lot of times, if we weren't doing a wedding on Saturday night, you could go to First Mennonite church, and you could go the Assembly of God. Now they had the Baptist church. They had groups that came in as well.
True.
And so we would go to those concerts when those were available.
Yeah.
And we had really great people who came through our town.
Yes, because I remember I didn't know much about Southern Gospel. Gold City came.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they performed at the high school, and I went, and then I mentioned it to somebody that knew about Southern Gospel, and they went, "Whoa, you got to see Gold City there!" Like, whoa, the gold standard.
Yeah, and the Couriers came through all the time. Those were a really great group. They were from Pennsylvania.
Yeah. That is true. Morton's kind of famous for getting big. I know Keith Green came here and performed in this area. Before he died, and wow. Yeah. So that was one fun.
Yeah, that was fun to do that.
In '83, the downtown theater would have been gone already.
Yes, it was.
Was the other theater out in the field open at that time?
I think it was. I think that was open out there.
Yeah.
It seems like it was.
Do you remember when Baskin Robbins was out there?
Yes. Then see, after church on Sunday night, that was a hopping place. Everybody went out to Baskin Robbins and got some ice cream.
Yes.
And what a great family that ran that. They were really, they did a really good job.
My kids used to make me ill by ordering bubble gum ice creams. Like, Oh, yuck.
Ooh, there were 31 flavors. It was awesome.
I know. It
was
true.
fun.
It's very
Those
true.
little pink spoons that you could taste though.
That's exactly right. Oh,
Yeah, that was a great
that
place.
was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you first came to Morton and you got to know the town a little bit more, were there any things about it that sort of impressed you more than others, or things you were surprised at?
Well, you know what? It was really nice. Our downtown, the shops that were downtown, the stores, were the hardware store that
Yeah.
was down there. You could just go in and Wayman's Hardware. And you
Wayman's.
could go in, and if you had, you could just say, okay, well, this is what I need. I don't know how to do this. And they would give you the part. He would explain it to you, and then, you know,
It's
you
true.
could go. And then if you had to come back, he would but they were wonderful. In fact, I got money when we got married. I had some money, and I still own my Costco step stool that I bought. That's a little chair, and then you lift it up, and there's the stairs
And
under
there's the
there. And I
stairs.
still have that, so that's
That's so good.
it's well loved.
That is so good. That is so
Yeah,
good.
So
Wow. And how about parks? Did you guys ever use the park system very much?
you know what?
in
We
the-
didn't. We used the parks a lot when we started our photography
Yeah, you'd
business
go there
because
for-
we did a lot of photography out families
Sure.
and senior pictures.
Sure.
And
Did you have a favorite park that
you know what?
used?
Yes, you got Northwoods was
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter got married there.
Oh, how wonderful.
Down where near the cemetery, down at the
Oh,
bottom.
nice.
It really.
Yeah.
It
And
really-
Oakwood was nice for groups because there was a lot of places where you could put,
Whole
people.
bunches.
Yeah.
whole bunches
So,
of-
I mean, the largest picture that I ever took was 127 people.
Ho ho ho! What group was
Zobrist.
that? Was it?
Yes.
The Zobrist
Zobrist.
family.
Uh-huh.
They
And,
said we need to interview Bud Zobrist.
Oh, yes, Bud Zobrist
'Cause
has
he-
lots and lots of stories
Yeah.
about growing up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the downtown, Woodsix was wonderful, and you could
Yeah.
go in and you could shop locally. That was nice. And there would be sidewalk sales. That was a
Right.
lot of fun
I
to have that.
remember. Yeah.
So one of the things that Don and I did while we were here, it's through our church, was we visited the nursing homes a lot.
That's
And so we
wonderful.
would go in and maybe have a service on Friday night where we would just play games or do trivia
Sing.
or sing. And then Don and one of the other fellows from our church and then the wives would go as well. And we would hold Sunday service at Morton Terrace. Every week, and so that
wow.
was
Do you
so.
play the piano or anything?
I do not. I
I don't
barely
either.
can play the radio. But that was fun. So that was very nice to do.
Oh, and what
you
a
got to meet.
service.
So I will tell you that. So the people at the nursing home, they did not know Don was not a minister. Because
Oh.
he came and he did service every
Sure.
week, so they just thought he was a minister. Well, one of the ladies there passed away,
Oh.
and so she said, "Well, you need to get my minister, Don Pyles, and he's going to do my service, do my funeral for me." And so they called him from the nursing home. Of course, we knew all the ladies. They said, "Well, she said you're the person supposed to do her thing for
Her memorial
And Don is
service.
like, "Oh my goodness." And I said, "You know what? You know this woman. I mean,
Yes,
we've known her all
come on.
these years, so just go and you can do." And so he did. He had to go down to the. And I think I went with him just for moral support because he was so nervous, and
Yeah.
so he had to. There was. And she was quite up there in years, so there
Sure.
wasn't a whole lot of family there. But he did the service; he did a really good job,
Nice.
and they gave him $50.
Great.
And then we went to the cemetery, and he just read out
Sure.
of the Bible.
Yeah.
And then everybody,
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
and that was it. Yeah, but they thought he was a minister. I mean, he'd been coming there servicing to them.
Sure.
It's like the
Aw.
Lord made us all ministers. So.
It's true.
Yeah, so that was that was fun. But we had a lot of good times in the nursing homes. We went to Morton Terrace and we went to Morton we went to Restmore.
Right.
And yeah, that was a lot of fun.
What's the other one? Morton Terrace.
Morton Terrace
Villa.
and Norton Villa.
And
yeah.
Morton Villa.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was fun. So one of the things we would always do, so this time of year,
Yes.
okay, is we would go on Sunday night, maybe, we would take fresh tomatoes that we grew. We tried to give the tomatoes to the nursing homes, but because it's not a certified supplier or something, they couldn't serve them during the meals. But we could serve them on that night. So we would come in and we would slice them and give anybody who wanted some and put a little salt on there. Because you get hungry for that. You know, when just because you're in a nursing home doesn't mean that you don't love those things still, and so that's what we would do. We would come in, and sometimes we bring watermelon.
That's
great. Yeah, that was
that's
fun.
Great. Did you have your garden out behind your house?
Yes, we did.
Oh,
yeah, we always had a garden. Well, when we lived on East Avenue, we had a garden in Deer Creek.
Okay.
With Mom and with my in-laws, because it was a really big garden.
Okay.
And then when they moved to Restmore, and we moved downtown, we moved to 125 West Jefferson. Then we had a garden in the back.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's
so
the one I was thinking about. So,
that was a great. It was fun.
So you came in '83 because I was
Yes.
trying to think. So this library would have been built. The first part of this building.
Part was, yeah.
So did you ever use the downtown library?
You guys were already here.
Yeah.
When I came.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't remember the downtown. I know where it was, and then it was used for various things over the course of the next few years. I know Mrs. Harvey, Sheila had her pottery in there during festival a couple of times.
Yeah.
In that spot where the coffee shop was. So,
yeah. That's the part that is where I started. And it's where before I started at the library, it was because I came in '80 and started there in '81. So came in June of '80 and started in March of '81 at the library. But okay. So what other parts of the town did you really like? Now you said you went to church. What was your church?
I went to Morton Assembly of God.
Yes, okay. Which is now
Elevate.
So
and Pastor
what was his name?
Sharon and Jack Malone.
Yes.
Sharon and Jack, and he was a very vibrant personality.
Yes.
And he would do all kinds of things to promote people coming to his church. He had a hot air balloon come in there once, and there wasn't, the town ended at the church.
Right.
And so that was the last space. So you didn't have any houses in the back or around that at all.
Right.
And the soccer fields were just a big empty field. In fact, I think they were still planting in that field at that time. So
I think you're right.
But we went to the Assembly of God Church, and there was probably 400 people at that church at that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember.
Sharon played. She was very talented pianist and organist.
Okay.
And I think Jack could play the guitar, but mostly he did the preaching and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a great body of believers there for a long time. They did a lot of stuff.
It was. Would you like to speak at all about how you think the churches have influenced Morton culture at all?
Well, I think we have...
that was something that impressed me when I came here. Yes. The number of churches to the, ratio of people that were here.
And, the one thing I think I liked most was that the churches were not in competition with each other.
That's true.
And so they would be supportive of one another. I know we had joint services a lot of times with the Community United Church of Christ, the Lutheran churches, and we would have a joint Thanksgiving service.
Or Good Friday.
Or Good Fridays, So it wasn't like they were in competition. But the congregations were pretty big. A lot of families. And so, you needed to have a big building because you had a lot of people who were coming. And they really were out in the community as well. I know the Assembly of God Church, we always had float in the parade, and we always went down and helped in the food tent, and we still have that today.
That's right.
That the churches are a big part of running festival.
Yes.
And so that's big, yeah.
Yeah, that's really, it's one of the things I like best about this is
it's great.
So many people that love God live here.
Yeah.
So, how about your connection with the Chamber of Commerce and the Pumpkin Festival? Because you big influence on that.
So what had happened was that when I opened my photography business, there was a gentleman who was already here named Jim Harper, who had been my friend since I was 21 years old. And he had a computer company here that he had. And so he was very smart, I felt. And so when I opened my business, I went and talked to him and said, okay, what do? I don't know what to, how do. He goes, you need to join the Chamber of Commerce. And you need to be involved. Don't just pay your money and don't do anything.
Good for you.
And so I did that. And so from the time I opened my business, I was very involved with the Chamber. And I served as an ambassador, and I served on the board, and I was the board president for a year. And what happened as my business was kind of closing down, because we had to make a choice, two choices. One, my husband was retiring.
Right,
from Caterpillar, and could we spend 25 hours a day together and not have someone get hurt?
Right.
And so that was
retired husband syndrome.
Yes. And the other thing we had to decide was, at that time, digital was coming in. And cameras were coming digital. We were making VHS tapes, but people were now going to DVDs.
Yes.
And so we had to make a choice. Either we were going to have to make an investment and step into that, or if we weren't going to be, say, working together, then we could just do the still photography, which we already had digital on that.
Sure.
And so at that time, the Chamber of Commerce was looking to hire an events coordinator. And I thought, this would be, and I had always done volunteer work with Crisis Nursery and done many events with them. And so, plus I went to a wedding every weekend,
That's right.
The stuff was amazing. And so I talked it over, and we decided that we did not want to step into the digital end of it, because that was about a $10,000 investment.
I was just going to say, because you'd have to cut seat. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and so we decided that I could get that job. And so I applied for that job, and I was hired. So I was the very first events coordinator at the Chamber, and my job was to coordinate the golf outing and the annual dinner, but mostly Pumpkin Festival.
And who was the director at that time?
The director was Mike Badgerow at that time.
Okay.
And so what happened during festival is a little different than it is now, in a way.
Right.
Okay, because when festival was put on, we had chairmen who actually did everything. So Wayne Mennel would be in charge of the food tent, and he sat down with you to order your product, and he's the one. It wasn't just the chamber getting the volunteers. It was the chairman, and Don Jones was in charge of, I don't know if he was in charge of Delight Tent when I started, but I know that it would be the week before, and they would go to the bank and use the phones at the bank to call up people and fill their shifts.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, so that you had more connection. That sounds really strange.
Right. Which bank?
They would go to Morton Community Bank.
Okay.
Where Wayne worked,
Sure.
and because they had multiple lines in there, and they would call people. And so you, not only is that the influence that I have, it's my influence in my church and my business and that.
Right.
And each one of those chairmen, their reach was farther.
That's right.
Than it is now. It's a little, with the chamber making all these arrangements, it's a little different.
Right.
And they had ownership of their tent. They really would challenge themselves, to do better, to bring something else new in, to do things. So it was a kind of a different thing. And so my job was just to coordinate all that, and make sure there were porta potties there, or, which I became a very good connoisseur of porta potties, I will tell you that. when I got there, the porta potties we had were from a supplier, and there were times where he took them off a construction site and just brought them here, and they were dirty and disgusting, and they were nasty.
Yeah.
And I went to an event in McLean County, and they had the cleanest porta potties I ever saw in my life.
Wow.
And they were Blue Spring, and I called him up and talked to him, went out to his place, and we've had him as our
ever since.
And they are clean, they do not smell, they are nice. And that was important. We're putting on a wonderful event for people. We want it to be comfortable all the way around.
Oh, and
so I ran the festival for 7 years. And it changed every year because new things got added and stuff were brought in, and people would come in and say, you know, and I think we should have a pancake breakfast, and so I'll volunteer to do it, and I'll get some people, and we'll figure out how to, and that was how the things came about, you know.
Sure.
Pumpkin ice cream, you know. Pumpkin. We'll just talk about pumpkin ice cream.
Yes.
Pumpkin ice cream started because it was a trend to have frozen yogurt at grocery stores. And the Sullivan Thompson Food Basket had 2 soft serve machines, and they would put them. They'd have different flavors. Maybe one be vanilla and one be some fruit or something. And so, and then that trend ended.
Oh.
And they had 2 Taylor ice cream machines, which are just a workhorse of ice cream machines. And so when they were getting rid of that, Aaron Miller came to the chamber and said, we're going to sell these ice cream machines, but we think that we should sell them to the Chamber of Commerce, and we could use them at the Pumpkin Festival, and we could make pumpkin ice cream. And I think that Barb Cool was part of that, because she was the receptionist at the chamber at that time. They sold them to him for $1 a piece.
No.
Yes.
Way.
And they were, they're wonderful workhorses. And that's how, and they put some, I don't
pumpkin
know.
Vanilla.
So it was pumpkin and cinnamon into the ice cream mix that they dumped into the machine. And
did they have a basic recipe, or do you think they experimented?
Well, they experimented, because when Don Jones took over from Barb, he experimented even more.
Okay.
And so the ice cream, the recipe that we had was for a gravity-driven machine. Okay. Well, when they bought new machines, they were a pump-fed machine. Oh. And it put air into that a gravity machine doesn't. Yeah. And so John Jones and I worked a good 3 or 4 hours trying to get the recipes so that the recipe for the air pump was the same as the recipe for the gravity. Because if you're in this line, you're getting that ice cream in this, and so we got it to where it was exact. It was the same.
Was exact.
Yeah.
But did you have to change the ratio of the ingredients?
Yes.
And stuff?
You had to have more pumpkin and more cinnamon in the pump machine
because it was having air.
Yeah. It was.
Otherwise, it didn't taste pumpkin-y
No,
enough.
it didn't. Yeah. So that was fun.
So how did any of the other treats that are pumpkin-y now, did they come on your shift, or did you?
The pumpkin baked beans.
Yeah.
Those Wayne is the one who put that together.
Okay.
When I was there, and then we bought some things. So remember those cute little pumpkin macaroons that we got from Tresker's Bakery?
Yes.
Oh, those were wonderful.
Yes,
I don't know that we do those now, but those were great. Those were very hot. And then, of course, Pat Marcoulier had her cheesecake company out there, and she made the cheesecakes that we sold in the Delight Towns.
Excellent.
Out that she did that for I bet she did that for 10 years. Because her cakes were amazing.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, they were really, really
She
good.
was amazing.
Yeah.
She was a great.
Yeah, she's a great lady.
She is a great person. So that was fun. Yeah, well, I remember, I have a memory of washing dishes late at night in the trailer, the 18-wheeler trailer that was right next to the food tent, and you were like 24 hours a day. Tell me about that. How did
You know what? It was a lot of time, but it was so fun.
Oh, it was.
Oh my goodness, it was just so fun.
And you were cheerful. And
because we were having a great time. We threw a party for the town. What could be better, right?
Yes, it's true.
So one of the things that happened when I came there, speaking of the cleanup trailer,
yes,
when I came there, the cleanup trailer, at the end of the night, there would be people in there washing those pans that the chili and the meat and everything was in, and it was so burnt on. Yeah. Because they sat there so long, and so it was a horrible problem. I'm telling you, there were chisels in this cleanup trailer. It was terrible. And so when Don Jones, Wayne Mennel, myself, Liz Meyer, we went to a food show in Chicago, and I don't remember what year that was, but it was, and in that food show, this fellow showed us a bag, and we'd tried everything. We'd lined these things with aluminum foil. It just never worked. Well, these were brand new, and they were called roaster liners, and they were plastic, and you could sit them in the roaster, and then the food wouldn't get all along the side of it, and so that was heaven. And so we bought some from him, and they were called pan liners, and they came in various sizes. And the first festival that we had, oh my, we learned because you could not turn the roasters up to like 400 degrees. You had to keep them down, which was all we were doing is warming anyway.
Sure.
And you needed to put a little water in between on the bag and the bottom
behind
because so it wouldn't melt onto there.
Right.
But there were nights where you could just go over to the chili thing, remove that bag, throw it away, and wipe it out with sanitizer. You didn't need, was a godsend.
Wow,
oh my God, it changed a lot.
That
is
great.
So that was great.
I just want to warn you, the camera is going to run out of battery soon. It keeps going, so I don't want to cut you off, but it's like, don't say anything too important. And I'm videoing with my phone, too, just in case. But anyway,
we got like
and I know
3 minutes because we're just got to go.
You're
No,
into
I
your
don't
hour
gotta go.
anyway, so
I'm gonna. No, her hour is till 4:20, which I'll give. I can do that. I think I can drive that fast.
Okay, you sure?
So, yeah,
right.
I do, because I don't want to cut you off. Are you
I
kidding
can always
me?
make up a different time.
No,
This
is so much fun. This is so much fun. So, were you involved as an event planner? Tell me about the shirts and stuff and the themes.
Okay.
Were you involved in deciding the themes of the pumpkin?
And so a couple of times we had people submit themes. We would put an article in the paper. We would ask people to submit themes that they liked, and then we had a whole list, and we would go through. And there was a committee, and I think it was the board, the chamber board, and they would decide what the theme was going to be. And then we actually had a contest for you to design a logo if you wanted to do that. And people did submit logos, and then we would choose which one we liked the best.
Sure.
And so, and then the shirts would be designed like that. And at that time, the chairman shirts were actually like golf shirts.
Right.
They had a collar. And that was a prized possession.
Yes, it was.
And you would see people, I have every one of my chair shirts.
Good for you.
Because,
that's great.
Because that was a prized thing and people would ask you, where can I get a shirt that looks like? It's like, oh no, you gotta be
a chairman. Yeah, you gotta be a chairman.
Yeah, so, and that was fun. And the other fun part about the chairman was taking the photo every year.
Yeah.
And so, as the theme would put it, I always tried to find a different place to have the photo taken. So, I remember in one of them, we went over to a house on 3rd Street. She had this fabulous porch, and we sat everybody around, and we took all it was great, and we were at the swimming pool when it was, the theme was about, and so taking those pictures in various places, that was very fun. That was very fun.
That is great.
Yeah.
And then what did you have to do with the parade? That's got to have been a huge
so the parade, so Marty Cole was the secretary at the chamber, and Marty, the applications for the parade would come in, and then Marty would lay those out in the way that it was supposed to, how they were supposed to line up. And then I'm trying to think who my parade chairman was, but there was a parade chairman
Okay.
who would we had these little things you put at the end of a driveway, a reflector,
Sure.
and they had numbers on them, and they'd line them all up, and that's where people would know where they were supposed to line up.
Sure.
And so when I worked, when Nick Graff,
Right.
the whole time that Nick Graff was the police chief, we never canceled the parade.
Isn't that
Never
great?
canceled the parade in all that time and that he was there, and he was very proud of that. The other thing about Nick Graff, on Wednesday night, now Nick's got this whole police force, he could tell people to do whatever he wants, but every Wednesday night of Pumpkin Festival, he is down there standing in the street helping people get across. He loved doing that. He absolutely loved doing that. And you get to see the people in town and talk to them.
Yeah.
And he loved doing that.
That is super.
Yeah, he was a really good police chief.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about 9/11.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
talk about 9/11 because Pumpkin Festival started.
That year.
Yeah. So what had happened? Whenever it was Tuesday morning of Pumpkin Festival, we would have breakfast. It was Penny's.
Oh.
Then, it's just a little restaurant that was downtown. It's Downtown Diner now.
Yeah.
And we would all the chairmen would go there, and we would buy them breakfast, and then we would go to various places. We had a storage unit. Oh, we had to go to Nestle's and get the mixer and some other things,
Sure.
and we went to a chamber, and everybody bring their trucks, and we just go load everything up after we got done. So we had been eating breakfast that morning of 9/11, and I'm paying the bill, and Phil Witzig is talking to his wife on his phone, and he said a plane just flew into the Trade Center. And we're like, what are you talking about? Seriously, a plane flew into the World Trade Center. And it's like, okay, well, let's go to the chamber. So we go to the chamber, and Marty has not heard of this. She's the only one in the office. I don't know where Mike, maybe Mike was with us. And so we turned on the TV, and it's like, you can't believe that what you're seeing on there. And then they reported about we watched the second plane fly into and we're just stunned. We just can't believe that. And so it's like, oh my goodness. And then the rest of the day unfolded, and we've got to move stuff and so we go down. Tim Merriman is here. He's already got his carnival mostly set up. And so he says, so we go down and we just get everything placed. Like, guys, we just got to get this in place. We can't do anything about this. And all the planes quit flying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
It was actually the year of a banjo bash. And so we had performers coming from New York City, Wisconsin, and Florida, our headliners, and Minnesota. And so it's like, oh my goodness. So we get the food, we get everything set up, and it's probably 6 o'clock at night, and Don Roth.
On Tuesday.
And Don Roth comes in and says to me, so what do you think we should do? You know, we're having a celebration. Our nation is in. I said, we're doing this.
Yeah.
We are doing this. They don't get to win.
No.
This is what this is about.
That's right.
This is what we're about, and we are going to do this. And so Phil Cool called his performers that were coming and said, listen, because there's no planes flying.
No.
And so he said, we totally understand. You know, don't worry about it. If you can't come, don't worry about it. Every one of those headliners drove here.
Wow.
From New York City. The guy that was in Florida, he was actually had to perform till 8 o'clock that night, put his family in the car, and they drove here from Florida. He was in Orlando and drove here to get here that day. And so when we opened Wednesday, you know, we had the ceremony like we have, and we had a moment of silence, and we had a prayer to thank the Lord for our country and our town.
Sure.
And so then there was a discussion because normally the American Legion leads the parade with their honor guard. Okay. Nick Shabona was in charge of the parade.
Oh.
And Nick said, okay, well, I think the Boy Scouts should do this. And so there was a discussion. They were, no, we always didn't know. Well, what we didn't know was Nick had gone to one of those Freedom gas stations. And remember, those Freedom gas stations had those huge flags. Absolutely huge flags. Yes. And he had gotten one of those. And he got the Boy Scouts to carry this flat and walk down the street. And so the Legion was in front of them, and then the Boy Scouts were carrying it. It spread the whole street. It took up the whole street and brought that down in front of everybody.
I remember standing in total silence.
Yeah.
It
was just amazing.
It was. Oh my goodness.
And at the end of this 4 days after all this, I just kept thinking, we can't let them win.
No, and they would have.
And we didn't want them. This is going to happen. This is America. This is what this is about.
That's right.
And so when Don Roth came and said, "Don't you think we should cancel that?" I was like, absolutely not. No way. No. We're not going to. No. And he was in agreement. He wasn't. He just wanted
he was
to make.
Just asking.
He just wanted to make the right choice for us.
That's
right.
But
yeah. And so all of those headliners drove here. That was amazing.
That is fantastic.
Absolutely amazing. They loved coming to Morton to perform.
That is so great.
Yeah, that was great.
So now you were the downtown tourism director, and do you want to talk about that a little bit about that? Because what kind of tourists come to Morton?
I mean, kinds of tourists.
I know. And how did you? Because Steve talked about making a vibrant downtown and a viable downtown, but he also talked about the people that contribute to that. So what?
Okay, so
what draws people?
So when I left the Chamber of Commerce,
right,
in 2007, one of the conversations I had, Norm Derflinger was the mayor, that I had with him was that no one was really watching over tourism in Morton. And our city manager, which was David, it wasn't his thing at all. I mean, David was a CPA. He couldn't care less about this. That's not what his
Everybody's
focus
got
was.
different talents.
Absolutely. And I said to Norm, we have to do something because there's no one standing up for us anymore. And I would go to Sports Illinois, things where the people who were planning baseball tournaments and football tournaments, and we had wonderful facilities.
Sure we do.
And we had great hotel rooms, and we were way less expensive than taking up at Naperville or somewhere. And I told Norm that, and he's like, that is a good point. We need somebody to represent us to these groups, to the state of Illinois.
Right.
There was just a lot of stuff that nobody was doing.
Yeah.
And so when he became the mayor, I had talked to him that I was leaving the chamber, and he's like, well, we're not ready to, and I'm fine. I'm going to change now.
Yeah.
And so it was a couple of months. And we had a group called the Downtown Business Association.
I do remember that.
That had been around ever since the 60s. The Witzigs had gone and they had gotten all the rest of business owners involved, and they did all kinds of things. They did sidewalk sales,
And they had community band.
Yes.
And they had sandbox with pennies in it for the kids to dig out.
Yeah.
All kinds of cool things downtown.
When I was at the chamber, that was a part of my job, is to be with